well, we said in the pregame show that we hoped that wasn't the last one that we would be doing, but sadly, it was. The Phillies fell to the New York Mets 4-1 tonight. Just never felt like the Phillies had any momentum. They were up 1-0, but even then, it still to me felt like the team was losing. The body language was dead, and I think that when they could have capitalized in the sixth inning, I think Rob Thompson completely butchered it by leaving in Jeff Hoffman. I think he left him in way too long, and bringing in Carlos Estevez was a pretty awful decision in hindsight and at the time. But I want to, because I know I'm going to rant at some point, but I want to, Luke, whoever wants to go first. Thoughts on tonight's game?
I'm going to jump in. I don't care if I steal what Owen has to say, because I just need to say this. And I think Tyler is going to be in full agreement with me. I'm sure Owen is too. But when you say that your entire pitching staff is a full arsenal going into this game, and you put guys out there that are going to give up walks, give up a grand slam to Lindor for the only hit that allowed runs this entire game, I don't know what is going through your head that says, all right, who cares if it's the end of our season? Because quite frankly, I would have loved to see, I was texting with Owen during the game, and I said, why do we not have Wheeler out there? And he goes, it's too late in the game. And I say, there's no too late if you don't have another game to play. And so whether it was Wheeler out there, whether it was Sanchez out there, I don't care if they can only throw an inning. I don't care if they throw 3 innings. I don't care what they do. But you need to get out of those jams. If you have bases loaded, who do you want to pitch? You want the guy to pitch that gave up 0 runs. You want a guy to pitch that you know throws a solid ball. And so to see Estevez out there, to see, I don't know, Kerkering I don't think was a good call. But I mean, at this point, Hoffman wasn't a good call either. So that's the problem. There wasn't a good call to go to in the bullpen. And that's the biggest struggle here. When you have a bullpen that you trust throughout the regular season, when you have a bullpen that you have gone to consistently throughout this season, and they have performed, they have produced for you, to just do this in the playoffs is atrocious. And offense is a whole different piece, but I'm just, yeah.
Yeah. What you said about there being no good options, that, yeah, you look back, like you probably should have gone to Sanchez instead of Hoffman. You maybe shouldn't have put Estevez in, even though I still think he's the guy you went and got at the trade deadline. He's been your closer in the second half. I don't have a problem going to him there. It was too late. Once the bases were loaded, the damage had pretty much been done. It's just the grand slam is worse than a single or a double. But you put Estevez in a terrible situation. So I don't really blame him that much. That was on Hoffman, throwing 2 crazy wild pitches, walking everybody. Put Estevez in an impossible spot. The bullpen just, I don't even put that much of it on Topper. Like, there's definitely things he could have done differently with the lineup, with the pitching, but I'll give him credit. He tried so many things. He tried almost every option that he could, and just nothing worked. No good options in the bullpen, no good options in the lineup. The bottom third, Mikey didn't come through. Just demoralizing. Like, these last 2 games, like Tyler said, like the Phillies, it just felt like we were getting lucky, barely hanging around. Like they didn't even really do that much to like assert themselves in this game. It was just like the Mets letting them hang around. The Phillies didn't actually force anything. It was just like, oh, the Mets are helping us out. They're letting us stick around, and the Phillies did nothing with it. And just an awful 2 games to end the season.
I mean, quickly, let me jump to Rockin' real quickly. Kudos to Lindor.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, what an absolute shot by him. I think that's, as a Phillies fan, it's hard to say that because that's ultimately what knocked us out here. But I mean, you got to recognize it. Like, that's what you love to see out of the star of your team. As a Phillies fan, we've seen that from Bryce Harper in the past, whether that's Bedlam at the bank or just any of the other big moments he's had. But I mean, that's got to be great for Lindor and for those Mets fans. So kudos to Lindor for, stepping up there in the moment and taking care of it for the Mets. Yeah, I mean, that's got to be a good feeling. And then for him to run around the bases and not, I don't know, maybe running around the bases, not bat flipping was a celebration on its own, but he didn't seem to rub it in anybody's faces. So, yeah, got to give him credit for that.
Yeah, he probably had the calmest reaction to a go-ahead grand slam in the playoffs that I've ever seen. But
yeah,
Five Nights says no chemistry on that team. Trade Harper. Than that. Bryce Harper will not be traded.
Wow.
Yeah, there is a 0% chance that he's traded, nor do we want him to be traded, because there was 3 things that went well for the Phillies in this postseason of 4 games. It was the starting pitching, which was great, literally great.
Bryce Even Harper. Ranger played great.
Well,
against all odds.
We'll get to him, but
sorry, don't want to jump the gun.
Bryce Harper, the starting pitching, and Nick Castellanos. Every other player, every manager, coach, no. The only 3 good things that went well for the Phillies were Harper, Castellanos, and the starting pitching. So 0 chance that Bryce Harper gets traded. That's never going to happen. Jake says you can take the pitcher away from the Angels, but you can't take the Angels away from the pitcher, in reference to Carlos Estevez. He did call. I can confirm via a text message that Jake said Hoffman would implode. And I didn't think that was going to happen in the 5th inning, because I thought that was just going to be it for him. I was assuming Christopher Sanchez would be brought out because they said he could throw 30 to 35 pitches. I was like, oh, perfect. Peterson came in for the Mets, and now Sanchez can come in. And Hoffman was still out there, and I sighed heavily. I didn't agree with that. And then bases loaded. You bring in your closer for a middle relief role. I don't like that. I know Owen. I get the mindset of it's your guy. He's been your closer. Go to him, but he's not used to those kinds of situations. He's used to coming in and closing a game, not coming in the 6th inning with the bases loaded. But Rob Thompson was awful this postseason. I'm sure we'll talk more about that. But, I mean, I think firmly the number 1 reason we lost this was because of the offense. That's really inexcusable. They scored 1 run, two runs, and 1 run in all their losses. So pretty awful from the offense that's getting paid over $200 million. Jimmy, he says, as a Mets fan, with Ranger getting out of back-to-back innings with bases loaded, I thought for sure this was going back to Philly. Ranger Suarez was just keeping them into that, but we'll get to the keys to the game, because Ranger Suarez was mine, and he pitched lights out. Well, he did have a lot of walks, 4 walks, but 0 runs. Like I said earlier, I don't care if you have 20 hits given up. If you give up 0 runs, I'll take that stat any day. 4 1/3, 5 hits, no runs, 8 strikeouts. What'd you guys like from Ranger tonight?
I liked everything except for the walks early on. Like, the guts from Ranger Suarez were just incredible to watch. It was really a love-hate experience because he was stressing us out so much early on, but then he really did get it under control those last 3+ innings. It was really impressive. Yeah, so impressed with Ranger Suarez, how calm he was the whole time. If the Phillies had won this, he'd be getting so much praise of like, wow, what a gutsy outing by Ranger Suarez. And it still was. The rest of the team just let him down. He did everything that he could. It certainly wasn't the most efficient thing we've ever seen, but he absolutely battled. And that's really all Philadelphians want to see these guys battle. And he was one of the few guys who it felt like actually succeeded at doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I was terrified to see Rangers starting this game. The way he's performed towards the end of this season, And then for him to come out and do this, you can't ask anything more from the guy. From a guy who's been lights out in playoff appearances before, had an incredible start to the season, but then for the way he finished the season, to ask him to come out and throw in a high-stakes situation like this one, you expect the guy to be terrified. You expect him to not, you expect him to stay what he was towards the end of the season, if not be worse. But then for him to come out and throw this amazing of a game in such a high-stakes situation, and then for the bullpen and the offense to just not capitalize on that amazing performance by him, it's disappointing to say the least. And thank you to Ranger for doing your job. I mean, the way baseball is such a team sport, and you can ask each and every single person to do their job, but if only one of them gets it done, it's never gonna be a complete game. And so, kudos to Ranger, threw an absolute amazing game for what we asked of him, and then it just fell apart from there.
He, like you guys said, there's nothing more you could have asked him to do. Same thing with Christopher Sanchez. Same thing with Aaron Nola. Nola kind of struggled a little bit. It's crazy to think that Aaron Nola was the worst starting pitcher out of these 4 starts, and he had a solid start. And you only win one of those games. But Ranger, I was a big critic of him going out there tonight. I still think it should have been Zach Wheeler. I don't know why Ranger pitched phenomenal. I'm not taking anything away from him. But why did he not come out of the bullpen? That's my one question. You knew your plan was to have him go 3 innings. And why are you relying on your bullpen at that point for 5, 6 innings if you know this guy is not going to go more than probably 5? Because then you're relying on your bullpen, who has over a 12 ERA in the postseason so far. So I don't know why Zach Wheeler wasn't out there, a guy that can go 7, 8, even 9 innings. I think Suarez should have been a bullpen option for the next for this game. I think he should have looked at it yesterday too. But I'm very, very confused as to why A, Rangers started in the first place, B, why it wasn't Zach Wheeler, and C, why Christopher Sanchez did not come out in the top of the 6th inning if he was available, if Rob Thompson really meant what he said in the pregame where he said everybody's available. But Ranger Suarez, hats off to you, tip my cap. You were phenomenal tonight. You looked like the Ranger Suarez we all know. And it's a good sign for him next year. He had probably the best season of his career so far, transformed into a pitcher that can go in late innings. So Ranger Suarez, congratulations on a great season. Unfortunate that it ended that way. Owen, your keys was the bottom third of the lineup today that consisted of Bryson Stott, Weston Wilson, and Brandon Marsh, and Cody Clemens for an at-bat. Bryson Stott was 0 for 3. Weston Wilson was 0 for 3. Brandon Marsh was 1 for 4. And Cody Clemens was 0 for 1.
Yeah, the key, it didn't work. The key was Jamal Adams' key card at the Jets facility. It did not. It was the same that we've seen. And yeah, basically like what I said before, the big guys didn't come through in their moments either. So this is on everybody, obviously. In this game specifically, nobody came through on the offense. But throughout the series, it's so much pressure to put on just the top half of your lineup to perform. So Trey Turner is going to get a lot of scrutiny. He had a rough series. We're all going to be upset with him. JT had a bad series offensively. Obviously, he was great defensively as always, but did not hit basically at all. So like those top guys are going to get a lot of hate, but they did mostly what they could, and they got nothing from the second half of the lineup. So yeah, again, like we don't want to get too much into off-season talk. That's those championship teams like the Mets right now, they get contributions from everybody. championship teams, you got to be able to count on everybody. And it did feel like the Phillies were complete in the regular season. And then all of a sudden in the playoffs, you could not count on everybody. You could barely count on anyone except for Harper and Castellanos. So I don't even know where you go from here, because I still think that this is a solid roster, and I still like the Phillies role players. They just didn't come through in this series once.
Yeah, it's such a hard place to be in because, like you said, Owen, these guys, these role players that we see on this team, they're fun to watch in the regular season. They perform in the regular season. It's just these last 3 playoff years, whether it's the World Series against the Astros, that series, or whether it's the NLCS last year versus the Diamondbacks, or the NLDS this year versus the Mets. It seems like we're climbing back every year, which is unfortunate. But the way that you have these guys hitting all year long, and then you get to these big scenarios and they don't hit, it makes you question, it's hard to say it makes you question if they're legit, because they seem like they're legit for 162 games. And then they come into these big high stakes scenarios and maybe 2 of them hit if you get lucky, but it's just a hard situation to be in. It's hard to make those calls. And yeah, sometimes you have to sacrifice a few bats for defensive purposes, whether that's putting Rojas in the lineup because it gives you more range at center field, or whether that's keeping JT in the lineup because his glove outweighs the faults of his bat an immense amount. And you just saw that tonight in that impossible throw he made to first base on that little dribbler in front of the plate. And so those decisions are just hard to make. And it's just, it's an unfortunate position to be in.
We're going to get into offseason talk maybe a little bit at the end, but we'll do a whole video on that. We're not going to touch on that right now because Larry wants to know, what are we going to do in the offseason? Well, don't worry about that. We'll get into it
maybe when we're in a better mental state.
Yeah, and then we can actually think clearly. Our heads aren't all over the place. But Stevie says, when Rangers settled down in the last 3 innings, do you think Rob should have left him in? Luke, thoughts on if Rob should have left him in?
Again, it's one of those things that's a hard call to make. When you say to a guy, hey, this is how long you're going, and he gets to that point, you almost got to be like, all right, you did your piece, you did your job. Now it's time to put the trust in the rest of your team and the rest of your bullpen. But with the way we've seen the bullpen perform over these last couple of games, I would have almost said, yeah, you got to let Ranger try and get a couple more, but then put him on a short leash. He gives up a walk or 2, he's out. He gives up a few hits, he's out. And so I almost would have liked to see Ranger stay in a little bit longer, because he settled down there after a little while. And you heard Owen say it yesterday. It seems like after the Phillies pitchers have seen the lineup 1 or 2 times through, they tend to settle in a lot more. And so I think it would have been great to see Ranger continue to pitch a little longer. But Rob did what he thought was best, and that's trusting his bullpen, which he clearly could not trust anybody in that bullpen throughout any of these games against the Mets.
I think Ranger was maxed out. He was pushing 100 pitches. There were runners on base. I think it made sense to take him out. It looked like the right move when Hoffman got out of the inning. Where things went wrong was after that, the very next inning. So I think Ranger went to his limits. None of us were expecting him to even go that far. To throw almost 100 pitches was not what we were expecting at all. And there were runners on base. If he had gone on a run of he got the last 6.
Did we lose you?
Oh no.
Oh no, he did this yesterday though. But
let's hear what you have to say.
He was hitting it head on with what I was gonna say. I feel like Ranger was pulled at the perfect time. He had 97 pitches, and like Owen said, there was runners on, and it was great because Hoffman came in, shut it down. that should have been it for Jeff Hoffman. I don't know why Rob Thompson decided to keep him in. Like I said, it should have been Sanchez, but I feel like Ranger, he came out at the perfect time. Rob did a good job with that. Trevor is saying, how can you say the bottom third only have one hit when the whole team has 4? Because we're doing our keys to the game, and Owen, who is just lagged out, I'm sure he'll be back in a minute or two. He said one of the keys was the bottom third of the lineup because they've been absolutely brutal in the postseason so far, and he proved his point. They didn't come through, and what happens? Phillies get 4 total hits, 3 of those coming from Bryce Harper and Nick Castellanos. So Jake said if he was on the Phillies, it would have been a sweep. I want to get Owen's reaction to that. Owen, do you agree with this statement?
No, I do not. I don't think that Jake would have. Jake on the field, I don't think would have been helpful. Maybe if Jake were in the Phillies front office analytics department, they could do better because he nailed it with his analysis of this game. He had 4-2 Mets, almost nailed that. I believe he hit on his parlay. He said Ranger was going to be really good. He was pretty spot on with this game.
The Cy Young of our kickball team. But
yes.
Sancho says our jerseys are hideous.
Oh.
I feel like these are the best uniforms in baseball.
I don't know.
I was going to say,
powder blues are my favorite.
I like the maroon too with the white stripe.
There's not a better jersey.
They're one of the best retro jerseys. I know the car. Everybody is powder blue because that used to be the away jersey. Everybody used to.
I get so annoyed. People say, like, I think the general consensus is that the Cardinals powder blues are the best throwback jerseys, and I disagree. I think the maroon
that's powder blue
is better than the red.
Yeah,
agreed.
He says we're delusional. I guess we are. But I feel like that's a consensus.
Let us have something. Let us have our powder blue jerseys after we lost.
I like the color scheme as like an alternate.
Yeah,
far better than the City Connect. That's blue, dark blue, and yellow. I agree, Trevor. Any uniform in any sport with powder blue is incredible.
That's right. You gotta love the powder blue.
Titans Oilers throwbacks also amazing.
Those are fire.
Yes. Maybe we'll do a video ranking every jersey throughout maybe sports if they have something like that. But Luke, yours was take it back to the bank. Unfortunately, Phillies will not be playing at Citizens Bank Park until April. Thoughts?
I mean, there's not much to say on it. The key was to win. It's ultimately what this means is to win and take it home where you probably have a much better shot of winning the series if you're playing in the bank. And they couldn't do that. And so, there's not much to say on this.
Now, what was I gonna? I think I just lost my train of thought. I don't know what I was gonna say. Is it time to start having a discussion of teams not getting a first round bye? Because you look at the last 2 seasons, Braves missed out on both times. The Dodgers, they're on the verge of losing again. So in the 3 years that the 6th seed has been put in effect, 0 first or second seeds have made it to the championship series. It's looking like it's going to be Padres versus Mets. So what are your guys' thoughts on potentially tanking to not get a bye?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. It seems like it so far with no one advancing. It seems like it's just a momentum based thing. It's super risky to not get the bye because you have to win that wild card series. So like if you lose that, then it obviously did not pay off. But if you advance past the wild card round, it seems like you do have a very good chance of continuing your run. So high risk, high reward, I guess. I'm all for letting the Braves just win the division next year.
Yeah, I think it's almost better in baseball to not get that first round bye. I mean, you compare it to a sport like football where that first round bye is so crucial because the way that they're playing that game, they need the rest. I mean, especially if you got guys on the verge of injury, coming back from injury, that week of rest is so crucial. But when you play a sport like baseball, where I said this yesterday and I stand by this. I feel like it is a full momentum based thing, whether coming into the playoffs, going through the playoffs, coming out of the regular season. It's all these teams clearly are very good, talented teams in the playoffs, and you've seen that in all the DS series around the league, being tied 1-1 after all of their game twos, and then close games, whether it's LA and San Diego or Kansas City and New York. Like, it just comes down to momentum at that point, and which team is hotter, which bats are moving. And so I think that first round bye almost hurts you a little bit. And as much as that rest is nice, especially for pitchers and their arms, it's like, if you have the momentum coming out of the regular season, you can fly through that wild card series and just keep that momentum rolling through the NLDS, through the NLCS, and right into the World Series, kind of like we did in our 2022 run. I think that was the crucial part of that 2022 run, is we had the momentum and we didn't have to rest too much at all.
All right, unnecessary.
If memory serves us right, every even year, the number 1 seed wins. But we're talking about nationally. We're not talking about American. American League's completely different. But Jeanette, the Mets were the better team. I will give them that. The Phillies, they didn't look like a playoff team, minus their starting pitching. Yeah, the Francisco Lindor having a resurgence. People have been calling him overrated, overpaid for a couple seasons now, and he finally has that big breakout year. He's probably going to be the MVP runner-up to Shohei Ohtani, and I wouldn't say carry his team. He hasn't done all that much in the postseason so far, but I mean, the biggest hit of the season for the Mets at this point. And now they're going to they're 4 wins away from the World Series. So they were the better team. I hope the Mets get crushed. Let's go.
Yes, me too.
I don't know if I'm prepared to say let's go Dodgers if that happens, but I don't think that's going to happen. So let's go Friars. Now, this is where we can get into maybe just a tiny bit of offseason talk. Because where do the Phillies go from here?
Just a quick thing that I remembered. Luke and I picked Francisco Lindor to homer in Game 3. We just missed it, Luke. We should have timed that better. Should have timed that better. I don't even know where the Phillies go from here. Like, the whole thing with this roster is that this core is here to stay. That's the whole point, is that you have an extended championship window with these guys. So other than like minor changes on the fringes, like, the foundation of this team is what it is, for better or for worse, which generally is a good thing. That's what you want from your baseball team, is a solid core that you could just run it back with year after year. It's just discouraging when it seems like they're regressing in the playoffs year after year. But it's the last year of Schwarber's contract this coming season, last year of Cassidy's contract. They're both on the 4-year deals, and it's the 4th year, and they're both getting older. So probably the last run at it in 2025 with this exact core. And then you've got Wheeler, Nola, Turner, Harper locked up for a while, plus the younger guys sticking around. But with this exact core, it's one more shot at it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the only free agents after this year are Estevez, Hoffman, and Turnbull, which are guys
I think Stubby also.
Oh, Stubby too.
He'll be brought back.
Yeah, I mean, it's so just like looking at that, of our core guys, those are a few bullpen guys who, they were good in the regular season, but didn't show up in the playoffs. So you're like, does that affect whether they stay or not? I don't know. We don't need to get into that a whole lot, but you got some solid starting pitchers locked up for a little while, which is always a good place to be, to have some guys you can trust in the regular and postseason, in Wheeler, Nola, Sanchez, and I mean, Suarez, the way he played in the beginning of this regular season and then in this playoff game. I mean, you got to still think you trust him at least going into next year, and hope that he can have a solid year. And then, like Owen said, you got that core group locked up, for a little while. Cassidy and Schwarber till next year, obviously. But, I mean, feel like we've been saying this for 3 years now, but the time is now. They gotta capitalize on this, what they have now. They're paying a lot of money for it. You can't be in a situation where you say, oh, we got to tank and rebuild when you're paying Harper and Turner and the guys like that. That's not a tank and rebuild kind of team that you have there. This is a team where you have to give it everything you got right now, because in 7 or 8 years, when all these guys are gone, that's when you have to probably rebuild, because I mean, it's impossible to tell what the Phillies will look like in 5-7 years from now. So
Elliot says they need to have a change in philosophy for their approach at the plate. And this is why I'm showing this before I speak. Kevin Long shouldn't be brought back. Thompson, I am fine with. Bullpen coach needs to go as well. Kevin Long, that is going to be the conversation of the offseason, I feel like. If anybody is fired, I don't think it's going to be Rob Thompson. Rob Thompson just led them to a divisional crown. World Series was 2 years ago. He hasn't done great in the postseason with the bullpen management specifically for the Phillies, but Kevin Long, the approach that these guys have going to the plate, they strike out too much. They reach too often. And how much of that can you blame on the hitting coach? And I know the main thing people are going to say, go out and get Juan Soto, because I'm sure that's going to be the main thing. People are going to want Juan Soto. Do you really want to pay someone $500 million? Is one guy really going to – I mean, he completely changed the culture in New York this year. And, I mean, they're in a tight divisional round matchup right now against the Royals. But I don't know if I would be opposed if Kevin Long stayed or go. I think if he stays, yeah, fine, whatever, one last dance, because I think Rob Thompson's contract is over at the end of next season. Same thing with Schwarber and Turner, but I don't think they make any significant changes. I think Mary Jo says Hoffman needs to go. I don't think he should go. He was probably our best reliever in the regular season. I just think the number one thing the Phillies need is a closer. And I know we brought in Estevez at the trade deadline, but to me, he just wasn't like a dominant lockdown guy. And that's what the Phillies have been lacking with this core. If they had that last season, they would have won, but Craig Kimbrell was pitching like Craig Kimbrell and blew it. So I think Mason Miller is a very interesting name that the Phillies should 100% look at.
Exactly where my head went.
Get him. He's young. He's under team control. He's filthy, and he's in Oakland. So when have the A's made a good trade for them? Never. So let's go out and get Mason Miller. Oh, man. Gave you the benefit. Tony is not joining us tonight. He's taking the night off, recovering from that awful loss. I got my dad checking in. Shout out him with Abby in the profile picture. Changes are coming. I don't think it's going to be anything major. I mean, maybe slight chance if John Middleton did not like at all what he saw from Rob Thompson. But I can't see Rob Thompson being let go. I really can't. As bad as he was, you can't blame it all on him, because the bullpen itself was awful and the batters were not hitting. So I feel like it's Kevin Long more so than Rob Thompson. What do your guys think is the chances?
Yeah, I don't want to see Rob go here. I mean, you can call it decision making, you can call it what you want, but if you really have a playoff or World Series caliber team, the manager is going to make some mistakes, but the team's going to capitalize anyway, and they're going to hit the ball. Rob Thompson leaving Hoffman in an extra half inning doesn't change the fact that we didn't hit the ball. There's no correlation between that. And so, yeah, maybe you can blame a few minor decisions on Rob Thompson and say, oh, I wish you would have done this. I wish you would have done that. But regardless, if these guys perform like they are paid to, and like that we've seen from them in the past, that we've seen them perform how they're supposed to, it shouldn't matter what Rob chooses, because Rob is he's a numbers guy. You see him make decisions based off the numbers that he sees from the regular season. And if they're not playing to that to the way they played in the regular season, it's hard to fault Rob for making the quote unquote logical decision in the moment.
Jake says the Phillies should hire Robert Saleh because he knows about not scoring. Oh my God. Robert Saleh will be an NFL head coach by 2026. You can take that to the bank. Jay says, what's y'all's thought on Ranger Suarez? I think he's in a great situation. I think with Aaron Nola, he could be anywhere from the number 2 starter to the number 4. That's just how stacked his pitching rotation is. 1 through 4 is locked up right now, so Ranger has nothing to worry about. Had probably the best year of his career this year, so he just needs to work on longevity, I feel. So I don't know how you do that. I don't know if that's cardio. I don't know what you do. I don't know specifics of how you prepare for that. So
take lessons from Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola. That's all.
Yeah, that's a very good idea. But I think mainly it's just the only starting pitching question going into the offseason is what do the Phillies do with the number 5 spot? Is it Andrew Painter? Is it McAble? Is it Taijuan Walker again? Is it a free agent?
Not Taijuan Walker. Not Taijuan Walker.
Please no Taijuan Walker.
Question. Does Taijuan Walker stay or they cut him?
That's going to be really interesting. Andrew Painter would be fantastic.
I would love to see Painter.
They'll bring in a free agent.
I think he's scheduled to start throwing soon, so maybe he'll be ready by spring training. I would love that. He'd be a huge boost as a number 5 guy because you're not relying on him to be anything crazy. Because you bring him up, and if he doesn't do well, fine, you can just send him back down in the minors to develop a little bit. But if he becomes that number 5 the Phillies have been looking for, I don't care. He doesn't need to have a Cy Young-esque season. He'll be a rookie. You just need him to show you something. That's all you need.
Better than Taijuan Walker.
That bar is very low. Very, very low. So, final thoughts on the season? Because I'm sure we're going to do a video on this at some point. That would be a cool off-season collaboration. But final thoughts on the Phillies?
Yeah. I mean, every year, no matter how it ends, whether we make it to the World Series, whether we win the World Series, whether we don't even make the playoffs, I love the Philadelphia Phillies, no matter who they are, no matter who's their coach, no matter what the situation is. I love the Phillies. I'm a baseball guy. I love watching the sport of baseball. It's something that I look forward to every year. It's something that I enjoy every year. And so thank you, Phillies, for giving me a fun season to watch. Didn't end the way we wanted it to. But yeah, I'm never going to say I hate the Phillies because that'll never be the case. I just love the game. I love the sport, and it's just a fun thing that I get to be a part of every year.
Couldn't agree more. What I said in the pregame of game 1 before the series started, just I love watching this group of Phillies specifically, and I want to watch them as long as I can. And it sucks that we only got to watch them for 4 games in this postseason. I just want to see them play together as much as I can because they're such a fun group to watch, and they're so entertaining. And we all know that they can be so much better than they were in this series. And so it's just so disappointing to have not seen the full potential of what we know we could have seen. It feels like we really missed out. And then just the other thing is missed opportunities within our own series, but over the past 2 playoffs, it feels like it's just been a golden opportunity both times, where last year you got to play the Diamondbacks. Nothing against the Diamondbacks. They were a great team. They were on a run, but you had them 3-2. You lost that. You got to play the Rangers, who were also good, but not a juggernaut by any means. So the competition wasn't exactly stacked. They've never had to face the Dodgers in any of these playoffs, which is crazy. And then this year, it's the most wide open it's been. You didn't have to face the Braves at all because they got beat up. They're going to be back full force next year. Another issue to deal with. You didn't have to face the Dodgers again. You might have had to. It looks like the Padres are going to get them, but you would have, had to face the Padres instead of the Dodgers. And in the World Series, it's wide open. So just, yeah, last year it felt like there was an opportunity. You didn't have a huge juggernaut that could take you out. Same thing this year. Didn't even have to face the Braves. It seemed easier this year than last year. And next year, it's who knows? We know the Braves will have their guys back and healthy. Just another obstacle in your way. And just, yeah, nothing is guaranteed every single year. So the chances that you get and they seem like great opportunities and you waste them and you're like, we still got next year. You don't always have next year because next year could be like the Braves this year where you have a bunch of guys get hurt and it's just like, well, what are we going to do without our 3 best players? And it's a wasted season. And so, yeah, now I'm just rambling about all the missed opportunities, but that's how it's been. It feels like they've had some great shots at it and they swung and missed. And now you hope that you get another opportunity, but you don't know for sure.
I feel as if next season is the last dance, because what happens if you have 4 consecutive seasons of this core that just comes up short? It could be the last time we see Schwarber, Castellanos, Rob Thompson, even maybe Alec Boehm. You never know what a season's going to hold. And I feel like the Phillies window is very close to being shut. I think next year is the final year with this core. Obviously, Bryce Harper and Trey Turner are locked in for quite some time, but I'm talking more so everybody else, coaching staff, key role players. I'm terrified of the Braves next year. They have Ronald Acuna coming back. They have Spencer Strider back. Austin Riley will be fully healthy. So they're going to be a tough matchup in the East. Yeah, obviously, you have the Mets who just won 89 games. Steve Cohen, they've been linked to Juan Soto. What's to say they come up short and they have Juan Soto? So terrified of them as well. Nationals, a young team that took a step forward this year. Do they take an even bigger step next year? So the Phillies, I feel their window is very, very, very close to being shut because you still have the Dodgers and the Padres. Diamondbacks had kind of a down year. Some bad free agency signings. I'm sure they're going to fix their mistakes there. Not really worried about anyone from the Central. They're never really a threat. It's usually the East and the West. But my point being, I feel like it was so wide open for the Phillies in the past 3 seasons. You had that underdog run in 2022, and your offense just went dead. You had last year where you were facing the Diamondbacks. You had them up 2-1, and then you had them up 3-2, and you had to win 2 games in Philly, and your offense goes ice cold. Your closer that you always bring in gives up every run possible. And then this year, where just everything except for the starting pitching goes cold. So at what point do you say enough is enough? I think it's next year. I think you have one more chance to win because that's the ultimate goal. I don't care how well you do in the regular season. You have to have greatness. You have to win in the postseason. You have to get the job done. That's why I say Nick Foles is the best Eagles quarterback of all time because it's winning. He's the most important position on the field, and he's the only quarterback, starting quarterback at least, to win a Super Bowl with the Eagles. So I will stand by that. And so I don't care what happens in the regular season. It's all about the postseason and winning the championship. So I think next year is the last dance. And I think it very well should be. You make minor adjustments. Maybe you make one big splash with a reliever or 2 this offseason. But next year is going to be the last time we see this core. I promise you, if they don't win. Kind of a reverse from 08 through 2012. Won the World Series in 2008, lost it in 2009, lost in the championship series in 2010, lost in the divisional series in 2011. And then this year went down that exact same slope except for not winning the World Series. So maybe we get to add that on at the end. But that's Philly sports. But I'm sure we're going to do a Phillies offseason video coming soon, hoping to do it with Philly all the time or possibly Tony as well. Maybe we get Jake in here, get some American League fans, get some representation from there. But that's going to do it. Sucks that this only went 4 games. Really wish this went longer because I had a blast. Can't thank you guys enough again for coming on. It was so much fun. I like doing it by myself, but I don't know, something was missing. So I'm glad you guys got to come in here, and you guys are awesome. Love you guys. All Philly all the time. Make sure you're following them. They're terrific, and they're only getting better. So that's it. I started this in August for the pre and post game show, and on October 9th, it's done for the season. So hoping to be back next year. This is not the last time you'll see me on Heat Ratio Sports. I'm here. I'll be making videos, so make sure you're staying tuned for that. And yeah, that's it. Have a great night, everyone. Have a great offseason. Phillies again ending their season tonight to the New York Mets. A statement that makes me want to jump off a bridge, but it's okay. But for all of us here, all Philly all the time, Heat Ratio Sports, thank you all for that. Whoever watched, whether it was one episode, whether it was all, maybe it was some, just appreciate everyone checking in and watching. Really, really appreciate it. So have a good night, everyone. Have a good off season. Stay safe, stay fresh. And for one last time, go Phillies.